To counter terrorism or not counter terrorism? That is the Army's question. So in case you didn't know, the US Army has quite the dilemma. You see, in the last 20 years, the US Army and the military in general is the highest trained, most combat-ready military in the world when it comes to counterterrorism. You see, as a former soldier, and really any soldier will tell you this within the combat realm, we train on counterterrorism, but then we also train on what's called Big Army. And big army training means just in case something with Russia or another big country pops off, we are ready to fight against a modernized military. But in all reality, when you look at combat and the application of training within the last 20 years, it was a majority counterterrorism operations. So here's the dilemma. Right now, AFRICOM is saying that the threat level for terrorism and militia groups within all of Africa, especially in the Somalia area, is very high. But here's the other issue. The Biden administration has been wanting to focus more on that big army training because look what's going on around the world. You got Russia doing their thing in Ukraine. You got China poking the bear with the stick at Taiwan. You got North Korea being North Korea. What do we focus on? AFRICOM is saying, please give us soldiers and keep the rotations going on in Somalia. We need to keep a presence there. But the rest of the army has deployments to the Mexican border, to Europe, to Kuwait, to the Pacific regions. There's a lot of deployments going on and not a lot of recruits are joining the army or staying in the army. And besides the lack of numbers, now we have training issues. What do we train the soldiers on? Do we train them on big army things or do we train them on counterterrorism things? This is actually a pretty dangerous dilemma that the army right now is facing. Luckily, the burden of all this doesn't just fall on the Army. You know, it's a U.S. military, a joint collective. However, when it comes to counterterrorism operations, especially in Africa, the U.S. Army in recent news has really been involved, and we're starting to see things really pop off. And there's no direct fight with China or Russia. However, we are training fighters, Ukrainian fighters, to fight against the Russians. We're only one step away from that. So yeah, that's where we're at. Counterterrorism operations or not counterterrorism operations. Do we keep deployments going on in Africa just to keep a U.S. presence there? Do we keep going to the Mexican border or take all those guys and go to Europe? We got a lot of things going on.